Experience Week 17 DraftKings picks and preview. This is a tough week. I'm not going to lie to you about that. It's it's not the fourth week of the preseason tough, but at least we do know some teams are not playing some of their players, and that opens up some good value. But you're going to have to wait and wait and wait almost to the last second until you see, hey, all of a sudden this guy is inactive and that guy's inactive, and you're just like, crap. And then you need to keep yourself involved in the situations of, hey, if the Patriots get up by 25 points, if the Steelers then rest all those guys. So what we're going to try to do is break it down in sort of a macro way here and try to find one or two guys from each position that are going to find you some value this week, and then roll the dice. It's a completely full slate, and we never do get that, so I wouldn't even worry too much about ownership percentages and things like that. There's going to be so many different combinations of team this week. Just pick the guys that you think are going to be good and roll with that. Ben Rasa from fanvice.com joins me on the line. How was Christmas, pal?
Oh, it was pretty good. Nothing too intense, pretty quick, but yeah, no, always a fun day with NBA and NFL, and now we got bowl season and college football, so good times. And now golf right around the corner. Busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you almost buried the main point here. Golf is back, and on New Year's Day, tune in to the Pat Mayo Experience, whether it be on the DraftKings YouTube page or whether it be on the audio feed on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Podomatic, Audio Boom, all those places. Give this episode a like, too, and that one, but me, Ben, and Jeff Bergerson from FantasyGolfInsider.com have a complete strategy, stats, everything breakdown for the DraftKings PGA season. So if you just want to try it out, I think it's the most like football. I think it's the most fun game that you can play on DraftKings. So if you're thinking about giving it a shot, week one kind of sucks, but watch that video. You will get yourself kind of balance on what you need to do for the season and the things you should be looking for. And if you're someone who likes to research their own picks, it'll give you a good base to start. I always recommend FantasyNational.com, but that's me. All right, let's get into the running backs here. Todd Gurley's not playing. And most of the Rams are not playing, but Malcolm Brown is $3,900. Is that the place to start here?
I think it's the place to start if you're really looking to punt. It's going to be interesting because obviously Gurley's not playing, but neither is Goff. I heard some of the linemen are sitting, so I'm not sure what that offense is going to look like. He's going to get the volume. I'm just not sure how effective they'll be as a team. The other guy, this is more of a normal mainstream guy, is, the Titans, they desperately need a win. Murray is banged up. So Derrick Henry, obviously he's not in that same super cheap price range, but for a mid-range target, I think that's the guy I'm really looking to target.
I guess the one problem would be, I think it's a grade 3 sprain for DeMarco Murray. He's a game-time decision, but, didn't this happen earlier this season where, Murray wasn't going to play, and then he played, and he got, 90% of the snaps somehow?
Yeah, I mean, the entire year, I don't think I've gotten this timeshare right. And yeah, you're right. There's been times where one of them looked like they were clearly going to be the lead back, and then it was the exact opposite. But that's a situation I'm definitely going to keep an eye on, though, because if Murray is limited or out, you have to assume in an all-in situation for the Titans that Henry's going to get a lot of work.
Yeah, I can see that, and it depends on what the Jags do as well. I mean, they're saying they want to play to win right now, but we'll see by the time Sunday comes. And if they can lose this game, they lock themselves into a first-round date with the Titans, which, it's better than playing the Chargers, isn't it?
Yeah, this would be, I know what they're saying. I saw, Marone's quotes, but you have to assume that they're going to at least rest some of these main guys. It would be so typical Jaguars to finally make the playoffs and get, Fournette or someone hurt in a meaningless Week 17 game. That would just be so stupid.
All right, so there's a running back below $5,000 right now. He's scored over 10 DraftKings points in 6 of his past 7 games. He has scored over 14 DraftKings points in 5 of his last 7 games. Do you know who that player is?
Frank Gore?
No, I didn't even look. It could be Frank Gore. That's not who I'm looking at right now. This is a $4,700 running back.
Oh, I'm glad it's not Frank Gore, just because I never want to play him. So you're my man, my hometown Bilal Powell, it looks like.
It is Duke Johnson.
Oh, I guess not.
And Duke Johnson gets the Steelers, who, I don't know, depending on what the Patriots do, may or may not have anything to play for, but the Steelers might figure that out by halftime if the Patriots are winning too much. But it just seems like, again, it's still a good pass rush for the Steelers. They're going to have to get the ball out quickly in Cleveland, and when that's the case, Duke Johnson's going to be on the field. He even plays half the time with Crowell on the field anyway, and the more and more that you look at Crowell, like he's like an Instagram and Twitter comments about how Hugh Jackson sucks and doesn't use him right. Like, this is going to be like a 70% share of snaps, at least. Now, whether that breaks down for touches for Duke Johnson, but this is a potential 20-point day. Like, does he have 2 touchdowns in him at any point?
I mean, I don't even know at this point if the Browns have 2 touchdowns in them as a team. So it's tough. But yeah, you talked about it. They'll obviously be behind. He's already seeing the work, and that should. I can't believe. I was looking at the game logs there. I thought you were talking about Powell. He's been a lot more consistent than you would think for Duke Johnson. It's the catches. It gives you such a floor at that price tag. If he's catching over 5 balls here and there, that really adds up. And then obviously if he finds the end zone, he's going to crush that tag.
I guess the other guy who's sort of like in that same mold right now, I used him in cash games last week. It's Wayne Gallman. He's $4,200. He leads, I think it's either all running backs or all players in receptions and targets the last 3 weeks. Just for whatever reason, the switch flicked, and Wayne Gallman, not Orleans Darkwa, was the guy for the Giants. And they're going to be playing the Redskins, who are also banged up at this point. Is he someone that you can lean on and just pray he can get into the end zone? Because you talk about floor with Duke Johnson, we're talking about Wayne Gallman. He's $500 cheaper and does kind of the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was on Gallman last week at like super low ownership. I'm a fan of his, and he hasn't been in the end zone. He's getting it done without that, so that's just a bonus. That will come. Matchup, with the Redskins at home. If he continues to see, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, it's week 17, but those type of targets probably unsustainable going forward in the long term. But man, if he keeps seeing that work in the passing game at this price, I'm definitely going to be buying.
Yeah, and he's still averaging double-digit rushing attempts each of the past 3 games, too, despite averaging 8 targets out of the backfield. Like, Evan Ingram's banged up. Sterling Shepard's banged up. They legit have no one left. So, I mean, they might just end up lining up at slot and giving him carries, too.
Yeah, no, the Giants, I mean, they literally have no one left, and he's getting the work. And yeah, you said it. They basically, it seems like they have finally kind of flipped the switch, and they're giving him, first crack at everything. And clearly in the receiving game, he's a weapon. So with all their other, not that they have many weapons left, banged up, I don't see any way that the volume isn't there. Obviously, you never know with production, but man, if he sees the same type of, 10 carries and 8 targets, you got to buy at that price.
So would you go with him, or would you go with Malcolm Brown, who you can almost pencil into 20-plus touches, despite the fact the Rams are playing all their backups?
Yeah, see, for me, I would go with Gallman just because, Malcolm Brown, I think would be pretty popular. Not that ownership, I agree. On 16 games, you really don't have to worry about that. I'm not sure how much he'll factor in to the passing game / with Mannion back there. I don't know how that offense is even going to look. Whereas Gallman, I've seen it in past weeks. The matchup at home with the Redskins seems pretty solid, and it's relatively the same price point. So I'll kind of take the more, I think, assured option with Gallman.
The one team that we didn't mention that is going to rest all their starters, we think, is going to be the Eagles, right?
You would think so. None to play for.
Yeah, but I mean, they haven't explicitly come out and said that at the point that we are talking about this right now, but does that help out their backfield at all? Like, does that make like Corey Clement the guy, or just we don't know?
I mean, what I would say, I think it makes Ajayi not the guy, but you have Clement, Barner. It's still crowded. They just have so many backs. I think it's kind of unnecessary because you're not getting any sort of price discount. We just talked about 2 guys where I feel way more confident in their volume over the Eagles. So just have so many guys, it's really hard to peg, even though I do agree I'd be pretty stunned if Ajayi gets, the full workload.
Well, you talked about Derrick Henry and being in a really good spot here against Jacksonville, especially if DeMarco Murray, we find out on Sunday that he can't play. But I see Jamal Williams sitting right there at $5,200. He's had his biggest games with Brett Hundley under center. The Lions have been eviscerated by running backs, especially through the passing game recently, and now it doesn't look like Aaron Jones is going to play. It's going to mean that he's probably going to play every single offensive snap that the Packers have. I'm going to be at that game, so I'm going to be sending him good vibes. So, who's to say that Jamal Williams doesn't end up near 30 touches in this game against the Lions? He's $5,200. Like, I mean, even just something stupid like 4 for 30 is probably on the table as a floor through the passing game. Just with Brett Hundley dumping the ball off the entire time, you know that the Lions are probably going to score on the Packers indoors anyway. Like, I feel like out of all the players that we've been talking about, especially at running back, Williams is in the best spot to succeed and at the best value too.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. You talked about Aaron Jones being out. There's really no one behind him, so he should get all the work. And yeah, inside against the Lions, who are just them losing last week to the Bengals was one of the most. That was really obscene. I can't believe, because I had the Bengals looked like they had given up on the season, which they had, and the Lions couldn't beat them somehow. So yeah, you assume in a game where the Packers obviously decimated as well, could be back and forth, and he should be the Packers' best weapon. I mean, with Hundley there, it really minimizes, Jordy and the rest of the receivers. So I don't mind that. I obviously it's going to depend on, DeMarco on the other side, because I really do like Derrick Henry this week if he's the only guy there. I've been waiting for one of them to get the full workload. But yeah, Jamal Williams, another guy you could target.
See, even if Murray doesn't play, I think I'm still going to stick it out with Jamal Williams, only because Jacksonville's just a tougher matchup, and I know what Williams is going to do in the receiving game. And, Lord knows, I mean, the Titans, you can't figure out what they're doing anyway, and you think, hey, Henry's the only guy back. They'll find some other loser to give the ball to before Derrick Henry, it would seem.
Yeah, no, that is a typical Titans thing to do. Somehow they mess it up. I'm really, I guess I should believe it, but I just can't believe the Jaguars are going to be rolling, starters deep into that game, and Titans at home in a game they have to win to make it. You would hope that they're leaning on their big weapons, and I think Henry's one of them.
All right, let's talk about good running backs that could be playing this week. We just talked about a bunch of scrubs you can fill out your value with depending on the situation. Who are the studs that we should be going at? Like Lev Bell's $10,000. Seems like a lot.
It seems like a lot, and you talked about it. I do think there's a chance, especially late in that game, if the Steelers are just decimating the Browns, which is very likely, or even more likely if the Patriots are crushing the Jets, that they're not looking to give Bell unnecessary carries. One of the biggest things this week, just in general, is where do you pay up? Where do you go get the salary? Because most of these top guys, they're either going to have reduced workloads or they're not playing at all. So for me, I haven't been a fan of them the whole year, but I don't mind taking a stab with one of the Saints running backs. Again, Alvin Kamara. He had a big game against the Bucs the first time. They're looking to play to secure the home field for the first playoff game. So don't mind that as a flyer.
Do you think that Le'Veon Bell could end up being a sharp contrarian play because he's so expensive? People have worries about the workload, but as it stands right now, Bell is a player that's going to get all the workload against the Browns, with the Steelers needing to win. And it's almost like I didn't play Todd Gurley last week. I was like, oh, he's so expensive. I'll take LaShawn McCoy for $1,100 cheaper and make the rest of my team good. That was a mistake. Bell is still the best player on this slate. Should we at least use him a bit?
I'm going to say no, but I was with you. I mostly paid down from Gurley, and that was definitely a mistake last week. I just really can't see many scenarios where he's paying. It's such an expensive tag. He needs the full workload, and I don't know if the Steelers give it to him. Obviously, he's safe. If you want to go there and cash and just secure, 25, that's fine. But I don't see many ways where he gets up for a big field tournament where you kind of want him to pay.
So of the top-end guys, Shady's in a situation where he's probably going to dominate all the work, especially with Traverse Cadet being banged up now with an ankle injury. He's only $8,000 up against the Dolphins. That seems like a really good spot. But, what about on the other side of the ball? I mean, Kenyon Drake was the most popular player in the Millionaire Maker 2 weeks ago when he played the Bills in a perfect matchup in Buffalo, and he even came through. Now, he was much cheaper at that time. I believe he was $5,800. Now he's $7,200. 7,200. But even if Damian Williams is back or not, I don't think it really matters at this point. The Bills still have one of the worst run defenses in the league. For whatever reason, Drake ran like 33 routes last week and didn't end up with a catch. That seems like an anomaly. Kenny and Drake seems to be in a perfect spot here on a team with, yeah, they have nothing to play for, but they're not sitting anyone either.
Yeah, that's half the battle this week. I like both of them. I like Shady. It's limited options up here. So, yeah, give me some Shady. Drake, I do think he's a little overpriced, but in a week like this with so much value, it's easier to forgive that. And I agree. He's going to have some catches. He's going to be a threat in, both running and receiving. So at home in a game where he definitely has the ceiling, I'm not sure how safe that floor is. We saw last week it wasn't great, but it's not. There's slim pickings. I mean, the other guy I'd look to is Melvin Gordon, but he's hurt. So that's something to keep an eye on.
It is, and Anthony Lynn came out today and said that if Melvin Gordon does hit, Brendan Oliver would get the start because Austin Eckler is still dealing with that hand injury. He'll be active, but he probably won't be playing much. Brendan Oliver is only $4,000. I think the only other guy they have, and I think Andre Williams might even be hurt now too. Like everyone is hurt in that backfield, but he would draw the glorious matchup against the Raiders. He'd only be $4,000. Like if we just take Melvin Gordon out of the equation, let's say he sits on Sunday, and this would be a late swap game too. So Brendan Oliver's, unless somehow Melvin Gordon is ruled out on Friday, that if it does come down to an actual game time decision, no one will own Brendan Oliver except for all the sharp late swap people. Wouldn't that then be the move?
Yeah, I think I could definitely envision a scenario if I had Malcolm Brown shares, pivoting some of them to Oliver if that exact scenario happened. You get way reduced ownership and a perfect matchup. I do think Gordon's going to play, but that's neither here nor there. If he is ruled out, definitely throw Oliver in with those other cheap running backs.
Well, let's say Melvin Gordon does play then, and we know that he's active. No one's going to use him because of the injury stigma that's around him anyway. But if he does go, wouldn't that make him, I don't want to say the best option of the top guys, but by far the lowest owned option of the top guys that are actually going to play?
Yeah, I definitely think it makes him a real good tournament play, one of the lower owned guys. I personally would still rather just pay a little more and go get Shady or Kamara. Just feel a little safer. I'm also, we'll obviously touch upon Keenan Allen and some of the other Chargers that I'm looking to target in a game that they also need to win.
Yeah, well, I mean, they needed to win last week, and I used a bunch of Keenan Allen, and that did not turn out well.
No, it didn't. Yeah, they were the hottest team in the league for it felt like a month, and then no bueno now. Now they're done.
Last guy, I guess, it doesn't look like Kareem Hunt's going to play. Any interest in Charkandrick West, even though it's against the Broncos at $4,400?
Not really. That's going to be – I think the Chiefs are one of the most interesting teams on the slate because I think Mahomes is going to be pretty popular. People like him. He's a cool guy.
Doesn't this sound like the perfect spot for the Broncos defense?
Oh, yeah. I'm way more on that wavelength. That's what I was kind of alluding to. I really don't see it there. I think it's an unnecessary risk with some of these Chiefs. And the Broncos defense, obviously it's not what it was, but it's still a good unit. They're at home. They can always score. They always have that upside. So, yeah, I'm a little hesitant about taking Mahomes. Not that I don't like him. I'm a fan just like most people, but I just think there's easier options to look to this week.
Okay, let's move to receiver. Antonio Brown, the top-priced receiver, obviously is Nat playing this week. He's at $8,900. Then we got DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen, Juju Smith-Schuster is $7,300 now. Mike Evans, Larry Fitzgerald, Marquise Goodwin, who's only like 60 yards away from getting to 1,000 for the year, which is mind-boggling. But that's where Marquise Goodwin is at. He is a $6,600 receiver now, and I don't think I would have thought that coming into the season. Out of the top-end guys, are there any one or two that you're really gravitating towards?
I think Keenan Allen, overall, he's got the floor. He should be safe. And the upside, we saw it, a couple weeks when he had that just dominant run. Everyone else, I mean, it's ridiculous. You go up there. Brown is out. Julio, Hopkins, Michael Thomas are all somewhat banged up, so their status is in question. And then there's just some overplay. I don't know if I can really stomach 73 for Juju. That's a little much. So for me, I like Keenan Allen. Yeah, I'm with you. Goodwin, I can't believe it, but man, the Jimmy G effect. I'm looking to him, especially the Rams I know they're resting guys on offense. I wouldn't be stunned to see them rest some defensive guys as well.
And it's a decent spot for Goodwin, too, because he gets the price increase coming off a week where he didn't really do much because despite putting up like 40-something points, like the receivers on San Francisco didn't do anything. Obviously, because Jacksonville just shut them down with their awesome corners. Now, this week, that's probably not going to be the case with the Rams, like you mentioned. Just they're sitting everyone, so who cares? So that's a decent spot. Larry Fitz is in a decent spot against Seattle, and I never love playing Larry Fitzgerald in tournaments, at least, but, I mean, Drew Stanton just only looks at him, and that's a real thing. Like, even the first half last week, I think he had, like, 13 targets, and they just, like, stopped trying because they're Arizona and they were up by too much, but against Seattle, Seattle has to win, and their secondary is decimated, so Larry Fitzgerald's a decent spot. It would be Julio Jones for me. I just think, even though he is banged up, he still put up, like, a $150 last week against Marshawn Lattimore. Now against Carolina, they've been getting torched by wide receiver ones recently. If you're going to pay up, I think Julio's the guy.
Yeah, no problem there. Obviously, I tend to always have a little more Julio than most. And yeah, you saw it last week. I mean, the only thing that could break Mike Evans out of the slump, he finally got over 100 yards, was Carolina. So I wouldn't be stunned. Another team, Falcons obviously desperately need a win at home. You would hope they would go to him early and often.
Well, there's a situation in that Green Bay and Lions game that's kind of brewing. Devontae Adams hasn't passed concussion protocol yet. Jordy Nelson is unlikely to play with the shoulder injury. That leaves Randall Cobb and, like, Geronimo Allison on the other side of the ball. Was that just a situation to fade completely, mainly because Brett Hundley sucks so much?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to mess around with Slay to begin with. Detroit, he's a real good corner. Cobb I'm assuming Cobb would still stay in the slot. I guess you could look there, but yeah, you mentioned it. With Hundley, it's just that's why Jamal Williams has so much appeal, just because that's their only consistent weapon. It's really hard to trust that passing attack.
Are you locking in T.Y. Hilton at $5,900 against the Texans?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close to locking that in. I don't see many. It's tough. This week, there's not many options because there's so many question marks, and he just stands out across the board in every way. So yeah, I'm going to have a ton of him.
Well, I think it's T.Y. Hilton in his, I think it's like last 5 games up against the Texans. It's almost like close to 1,000 yards. It's insane. It's really ridiculous how much he torches Houston every single time. Even earlier this year with the same people, with Jacoby Brissett throwing on the ball. He still lit them up. So I feel like it's going to be one of those spots where we all go on to T.Y. Hilton. Everyone's all pumped about it, and this is the game he lays the egg. But I think the upside is so high. And like you mentioned, that with so much uncertainty surrounding a lot of these offenses this week, or even some of the defenses that the players are going up against, that T.Y. Hilton, the Colts, the Texans, you know what you're getting from them. It's probably going to be a ton of targets for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And just he's one of those guys being inside. I really do think that the dome splits are an actual thing. So fire him up. It's a tough fade just because he's the type of guy. It's not, if you get that wrong, you could be toast because his upside is so high.
Is there anyone else in that area you would look to? Like Brandon Cooks, you're getting a significant discount on at $6,300. The Patriots are going to play in a similar situation the past few years. I mean, they come out and steamroll people, and Brandon Cooks can really help you steamroll a lot of people, especially against the Jets. Now, unless you think it's going to be a Gronk game, which I think they would go out of their way more to protect Gronk rather than Cooks. So he might be the only guy still out there by the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cooks, I kind of lump him in, similar kind of every week where he's got the upside. You're going to have to stomach the low floor for the potential big games. Patriots are always tough to predict. And you're getting a nice price discount. So for a tournament guy, I don't mind it. Other than that, it's pretty murky. I looked at Golden Tate. I think that's somewhat interesting on the Lions. But honestly, the guy in the Lions, I don't even mind getting, it's a different price range, but pretty extreme and just taking a flyer with Galladay.
Everyone was on Galladay last week, too, and he doesn't get enough work. And all the work in, like, market share that we thought that he was going to get is just going to Eric Ebron now.
Yeah, well, that's just Eric Ebron. That's a whole nother podcast. That guy's finally emerging when I gave up on him. But, yeah, he saw the targets last week. That was encouraging. It's been a weird year for him, Galladay. I agree. Like, he really didn't take the step. I thought by now he would be getting more target share than he is, but last week was encouraging. So as a deep flyer, I don't mind at the price. He's basically the min.
Okay, do you know who I really like here on this slate?
I do not. Are we going high end, or is this a cheapie?
It's a cheap-ish. It's not like a scrub cheapie, but it's like a value price. So Josh Doxson is $4,400. Josh Doxson is playing over 95% of the Skins' offensive snaps. He's been doing that ever since basically everyone went out for the Redskins. And his performance hasn't been all that good. I mean, he had 13 targets last week and only 2 catches. That's kind of ridiculous. But just go back and look at who he's played. So since week 9, at Seattle, against Minnesota, at New Orleans, against the Giants, at Dallas, against the Chargers, against Arizona and Patrick Peterson, then against Denver. He finally gets a bit of a let up here. He gets the Giants again in a matchup where they just don't care. They've suspended Eli Apple at this point. He's just getting so much work, and I think that a lot of his stats have just been bogged down by the fact that he's had a tough matchup like 90% of the time that he's become the number one. Becoming the number one for him actually turned out to be really against what he wanted to do ever since Pryor went away, because he drew the best opposition. And in week 2, he wasn't drawing Patrick Peterson. In week 15, he gets to draw Patrick Peterson. That's just the way that it's going to work. And I know a lot of people are going to go with Crowder. I just think the big upside this week lies with Doxson.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You talked about, I also saw the guy never leaves the field. So that's step one. He's going to be out there, and the matchup is good. He does make me nervous. I don't understand. I mean, I know he's had some tough matchups, but man, he's had some games where the targets, he's only getting a handful, and that's been disappointing. But yeah, the 13 last week, lucky he caught the long bomb. And at that price, yeah, if you're on the field that much against the Giants, definitely in play. I don't mind that at all. I will definitely have some shares.
Is there any other quarterback wide receiver that you're looking from down in this pile? Like Robbie Anderson's price has finally dropped back down. He's $5,000, and all we could ever talk about was, Petty and Anderson, they have this connection. Well, now they're playing the Patriots. They finally have a situation where they can probably take advantage of that. Is Robbie Anderson someone to go back to?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a little worried that we see some Hackenberg in this game.
Oh, God.
To be honest. Which, I mean, if that's the case, we'll get to the Patriots defense, because that would be the lock of all locks if Hackenberg's involved. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going there. It's pretty decimated down here, honestly. It's a dead range. I think for me, you talked about Doxson, a couple of other, the Galladay is a cheapie, and then I'm kind of peppering, Hilton, and then maybe hopefully can work around to get up to someone like Keenan Allen or Julio.
I guess the Tampa situation is kind of interesting as well. Like, the Saints are probably going to come out and steamroll, leading to a lot of volume in terms of passing attempts. But, Mike Evans is healthy, and he's going to play. Deshaun Jackson's working his way back from an ankle. Chris Godwin's working his way down from an ankle. He didn't practice on Wednesday. We'll see what happens on Thursday and Friday. But do you have any interest in that passing situation? Because Jameis actually looked kind of good last week.
Yeah, I mean, besides his late game outburst, where I thought he was going to try to fight the ref. But, Deshaun Jackson's one of those guys, if he's healthy, it only takes one. He's such a burner. I don't mind that, just because at that price, it literally only takes one of his long, busted plays. Other than that, I don't think I'm going to mess around with Godwin. Obviously, a lot of people, including me, were on him last week. He caught that long pass, which is helpful. I don't want to take a stab with Humphreys. So I don't mind. He's going to obviously draw Lattimore. Evans looked pretty good last week. I think that's a decent spot, pretty fair price. Or if you want to take a big shot with Deshaun Jackson and hope he gets a home run ball.
For tournament play, there is one more receiver I like at $5,700. Mike Wallace has actually been really good and super consistent. Obviously, that didn't really come to fruition last week, only 4 for 60, but I mean, that's sort of like the low end of his games right now. And clearly, he's not paying off his $5,700 price tag by getting 4 for 60. But, in games before that, he still got 10 fantasy points, 14.9, 10.2, 19.6, 15.6, 9.8. Like, he's always one touchdown away from having a really, really big game. And he's not the burner that he used to be, but Jeremy Maclin looks like he's going to sit again. This could be a situation where even up against Cincinnati that they can put up points here, and no one's really going to be focusing on that game. I feel like no one's really interested in AJ Green. They look at Gio Bernard, that even if Mixon is out, it's just like, Gio had his big game last week in a soft matchup. This one's tougher. This game feels like a dead zone, and I think the guy that you want from it would be Mike Wallace.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a dead zone. And I agree. Ravens need to win. Obviously, for me, the logical guy would be going to the ground with Collins. But yeah, Wallace has been better better than I think everyone thinks. I mean, he just Flacco makes it so tough to roster those receivers, but if Macklin's sitting and that floor is around 2x, that's not bad. Obviously, if he finds the end zone, you're there.
The problem with the running backs is it's clear that Alex Collins is like the best guy, but I never know how much of the workload he's actually going to get.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, this is another one where just kind of like with the Titans, where I finally think I have it figured out. This is going to be a Collins week. Somehow, like, Buck Allen will emerge, or they'll just pass with Woodhead every play or something. So it is confusing. You just look at Collins' workload recently, and it sets up for a game you would think they would be ahead late in the game, giving him those extra carries.
All right, quarterback is going to be the toughest to figure out of all the positions just because, hey, who's playing, who's not playing, what defensive players are playing, are these guys going to play the entire game? What would you suggest doing at quarterback here? Just definitely load up on the guys who have either tons to play for or nothing to play for, and just knowing that they're going to play the entire 4 quarters? Or do you get sneaky and be like, hey, listen, if Brady only plays half the game, that's because they're up by 35 points, and you might want to have Tom Brady?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see what you're saying there, because obviously it's kind of like in the NBA where it's if the guy blows out, if the team blows out, it's because they already crushed it. But I don't know if you mess around with that. There's just too much that can go wrong. For me, I'm just taking guys that I know are going to be in there, that have done it before. I know Mahomes is going to be in there, but for me, I would just rather go get Brissett, or pay up for someone. You have Breeze, you have Rivers. No problem with either of them in that mid-range.
So of the pay down guys, you have Brissett, you have Mahomes. What the hell is the dude's name from the Rams? I always forget his name. Mannion's $4,500. Like, he has the best matchup out of all of them, realistically.
Yeah, no, he does. And I mean, I could see that game even with the Rams, resting a bunch of guys, getting up and down, him and Jimmy G kind of shooting out. And he can sling the ball. I saw him in preseason. I've seen him in college. I don't know, obviously, how good he is and if it can translate to the pros, but he's got some promise at literally the min, or 4,500, close to the min. So, again, though, I just, for an extra 1,000, you got a guy at home against the Texans who's been in there the entire year, has some running upside. That's just where I kind of want to go.
I guess so, but we just talked about, especially at running back, you can really pay down at running back this week if you're paying attention and try to figure it out. Like, do you necessarily need to pay down at quarterback, or could this be a week to get access to, Russell Wilson, and, they have to win?
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think you have to pay down at quarterback, because at some point we're going to have to find a way to allocate the salary. I mean, there's a lot of reasonable value, but you can't leave a ton of salary on the table. That doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, no problem with Wilson. And like I said, no problem with Rivers or Breeze. I think their upsides are a little not capped, but I feel better about their floor. I think they're pretty safe mid-range targets.
Well, I think Rivers actually turns out to be the best one at 6,600 only because of the Melvin Gordon injury, that if he is not truly 100%, that they probably just won't turn around from the goal line and hand him the ball 4 times. Like, they might throw to Gates, they might throw to Keenan Allen, just the extra passing attempts that we might be able to funnel out of the Chargers offense this week could lead to a really big day from Rivers.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. With Gordon banged up, it's just extra incentive for them to be throwing in the red zone.
Cam, any interest? Stafford at home against the league's worst pass defense?
Stafford. Both of them. Cam last week, God, I can't. I mean, he salvaged a little, but man, I thought that was just a home run spot, and he did not get it done for me. I don't mind either. I still think, you just talked about it. Rivers would be the guy kind of in that same range, but both of them, again, we know their roles. They're going to be out there. Clearly, they play. So I don't mind that. It's better than I'm going to let other people try to chase and make wild, unpredictable moves and just keep it steady at quarterback and hope that that's the right formula.
Well, again, with 16 games on the slate, we're not used to having this many players to choose from on your regular main slates that, is this a week to go crazier, or is it a week to rein it in and play even more of I don't want to say play a cash game team in a GPP, but something that resembles more of that, like some of the safer guys, just because people are going to go nuts?
Yeah, I definitely think it's more of the latter, just because it's one of these situations you're going to get reasonable plays, not obvious plays like T.Y. Hilton, but reasonable targets at sub 5% just because there's so many options. So there's no real reason to reach for a crazy guy and get him at sub 5% because, it's just an unnecessary risk. There's not, obviously sometimes on a short slate, if you want a really low-owned guy, you got to take a crazy guy, a dark horse. But that's not the situation here. There's so many guys to go around. It's going to be wildly dispersed at QB. I'm just going to keep it pretty safe, and I don't think any of them garner a ton of ownership.
Jimmy Garoppolo against the Rams, third-string squad. Is this the spot, or is this the spot everyone uses them, and they're like, they score 14 points and win the game anyway?
I think it's a little of both. I do expect him to be one of the more popular guys. I don't think he crushes it. But, man, what's there to say? Last week, I was pretty shocked. That was impressive, not going to lie. So, against the Rams backups, I don't see why he would have a bad game. I'll still lean Rivers over him personally, but another reasonable option.
Tight ends, Travis Kelce is at the top of the list, but he's probably not going to play or play very, very limited snaps this week if he plays at all. And then you go to Gronk. Gronk is $7,000. He gets the Jets. The Jets suck against tight ends. He has a lot of incentive bonuses, too, that he needs to hit. I don't really ever like to play into those narratives, but that is one that's on the table, that he can get a huge boost in salary if need be here. And he's Gronk, and he rules, and ever since he's come back and been kind of healthy over the past 5 weeks when we've seen the Brady decline a little bit, he's still garnering 35% of the Patriots market share, which is super high. Is it too much to ask to pay up for Gronk and have him go off again, or is it a week to just pay down at tight end and hope to get lucky?
No, for me, I think with all the value out there, it's pretty easy to plug him in. He's obviously, when you factor in everything, the best guy on the tight end slate. So I think with all that extra value, it's not too hard to pay up for him. And I'm really, there's other guys in the mid-range. I'm not punting tight end, I can tell you that much. I'm not going to take a stab with a cheapie. I may go Delaney, maybe look to Jack Doyle's another one. Just any of the Colts, honestly, in this matchup. So that's about it, though, for me. I think I can allocate more salary to tight end than I normally do.
Yeah, $4,700 for Jack Doyle isn't terrible. And like you said, if you end up using Brissett, you can use Brissett, Hilton, and Doyle as just pray Frank Gore doesn't randomly catch a touchdown again, or at least rush a touchdown. If he catches a touchdown, it's not the end of the world. But those seem to be the two guys they're the only two guys that get catches in that offense.
Yeah, there's nobody. I don't even know where Moncrief is at that point, which is a good thing. So yeah, you can pair them. Obviously, you could run it back with someone if Hopkins plays or whatnot, but I don't know. Tight end's pretty limited down low, and it's just hard for me to imagine one of the better tight ends doesn't have a big game of the guys who are playing, obviously.
I guess some guys to look at, and again, this is really going to depend on who's active, who's not active, so a lot of this information can change when it comes around to Sunday. But Demetrius Harris on the Chiefs is $2,500. If everyone sits in that game, he's the min. Tight ends against Denver tend to do very well. He can see a huge jump in snap share, and with Mahomes throwing him the ball, they have the connection from basically playing second team the entire year. That's always something to look at too, and that's always the hardest part when you're dealing with backup quarterbacks, is that they all have their different favorites. Like when Bryce Petty came in at the end of last year, just threw it to Robbie Anderson every single time, and everyone else was standing around like, who the hell is Robbie Anderson? But that's his guy. Harris could end up being his guy if Kelce sits. I might wait at tight end and see who sits, who doesn't, and then make some of my choices. But, would you use Antonio Gates?
I think I'm going to jump off that. It's fine. I see the red zone appeal, especially if Gordon doesn't play. But, the price last week was when was the time to jump on him. Not saying he can't get there, but he's going to have to find the end zone again. And I don't know if he can hit those totals from last week. But yeah, you brought up Harris is somewhat interesting. I guess if I would punt, he's someone to kind of look to. You touched upon it. It's true. Backup quarterbacks, they have different connections, different chemistry. He saw a bunch of targets last week. That guy, I think he dropped a touchdown, I want to say. But so yeah, not bad there. But again, I think you got Delaney in a must-win. You got Doyle at home, or go all the way up to Gronk and just hope that he just does another Gronk-like game.
Charles Clay would be the last one, 10-9 targets last 2 weeks, only $3,700, playing Miami, the team that's given up the most DraftKings points to opposing tight ends this season. And revenge game, don't forget about that with Charles Clay. He rarely gets into the end zone, but, that can be a fickle thing from time to time. $37 seems too cheap, or $3,700, sorry. $37 would be way too cheap.
Yeah.
$3,700 still seems kind of cheap.
Yeah, I think, for cash especially, pretty safe floor if he's seeing those type of targets. Week in, week out, it is tough because he, like you said, he rarely, if ever, finds the end zone. For them, he is a little banged up. He's obviously going to play. So I don't mind him, if especially in cash, if you're looking for just a safe guy, get you around 10, not kill you. But upside seems somewhat limited.
It is. Does that mean, would that dissuade you completely from using him in tournaments, or would he be a low exposure guy to have it? I mean, I don't think he's going to be super highly owned, but like if you made 10 lineups, use him in 1, you made 20, use him in 2, like 10% exposure basically?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, I think if you really wanted to get aggressive or extreme, you could run like a Tyrod to him, put Drake on the other side, maybe throw in a Kelvin Benjamin and do a slight game stack with him. I'm not sure if I would just want him as a single. I'd probably try to loop him in with Tyrod and hope that somehow he can find I think he needs to find the end zone for you to get there in tournaments.
And if you're going to do a game stack, running it back with Kenyon Drake probably would seem like the sensible move.
Definitely.
All right. Defenses before we get out of here. Any one right off the hop that you think you have to play?
I don't think you have to play him, but first of all, if Hackenberg is playing, then yes, you have to play the Patriots because that's just extreme. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they seem like the safest option. It's interesting. We're going to have to keep an eye on the news just because, if we get word, someone say like the Jaguars, they decide to rest the Titans, 2,800, pretty appealing. And there's going to be a lot of teams that just don't have their normal guys out there. So even if you wanted to go extreme and punt with the Niners, they're basically the min. I don't hate that against the Rams backups.
Yeah, I mean even the Cowboys against potentially the Philly backups too. They're $2,300.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's obviously it's defense. It's very hard to predict wild touchdowns, and now with the this year has been ridiculous with these last lateral plays. It seems like teams are scoring to move spreads and change the points wildly at the end of the games. But I'm just gonna look for teams in good spots against teams that are resting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Steelers would be the only other ones at $3,900. I know since Shazier went down, their defense has not really been the same. But like, I don't know, DeShone Kaiser's playing the entire game. That's usually good for a few points.
Oh yeah, more than a few points. It's I know that all too well. So no problem with them at home. They're obviously gonna be they should be throttling them.
Yeah, I can't really find anyone else like the Redskins. I find intriguing at $3,200. They've just been a pretty decent fantasy defense like almost every single week.
Yeah, I mean for a defense that isn't great, they get a decent amount of pressure, and that's one of the keys you want to look for with defense. If you can get after the quarterback, it just obviously links to turnovers, sacks, fumbles, touchdowns, whatever it may be. So no problem with them against Eli and maybe Davis Webb. I don't know if he sees the field, but yeah, I use them a decent amount. But I may look to pay down again if we really get word that the Rams are running actual full backups out there. Punting completely doesn't seem unreasonable.
I guess the other one, we kind of brought them up a little bit earlier, was the Broncos. They're $2,900 against the KC backups. And the Broncos still have you talk about getting pressure. They still get pressure. That's one thing that they do.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I'm not saying Mahomes isn't a good player. I'm not saying he's not going to be good, but it's not a great spot for him in Denver against that type of pressure. He's that kind of guy, too. He likes to move around, likes to take some chances. I would not be stunned to see him throw a couple bad ones.
Well, I remember in the preseason all like the gifs that were going around of him just throwing absolute lasers down the field, and then like 2 minutes later be like, oh yeah, he also does this. And it's like him rolling out, throwing it directly. It was like the Matt Stafford pass last week against the Bengals. I know Stafford was getting hit when he threw it, but like you just see him wind back, throws a laser, and there's no one around besides the Bengals guy who just runs it back. Like that could happen here.
Definitely, he's a wild man. I mean. Yeah, at Texas Tech, he used to have just games where it was just, he makes really good throws, but he makes some really ugly ones too. And against that type of defense, there's big upside there for the Broncos.
All right, that'll do it for the positional picks and preview. One thing I did want to ask you, how do you approach Week 17 as it terms to allocating your bankroll? Because I always talk about this when it comes to no-cut and smaller field events in golf, that I just don't play as much because it's more difficult to win. We don't have as much information. And the whole key is have all the information and then utilize all that information to make your best teams, then invest a lot more when you know what you can point to. This week it seems like there's a lot up for grabs. Now, do you embrace that and thinking that having more teams and even upping your bankroll a little bit will give you a bigger advantage in some of these top prizes?
No, I don't think that that's, a wise strategy. It's tough when there's unquantifiable things, and there are going to be things that we don't know, and there are going to be coaches that do things that aren't reported, and that makes it tough. So I think the smart thing to do is probably to limit it. I'm not saying don't play, but you're going to have to embrace that some stuff may break against you that you didn't have any control over. It is the end of the year, so obviously there are some tax purposes to how much you can play. If you're trying to take some stabs now, nothing wrong with that. But yeah, in weeks like this, I think it's probably wise to at least consider that there's going to be some more volatility.
All right, Ben Rasa, check him out on Twitter at JazzRazDFS. And don't forget, Ben is on the preview and strategy session to DraftKings PGA, which drops on New Year's Day. Don't forget to go to fantasynational.com right now, too. If you're interested in golf, free trial going on up until New Year's, so get acclimated with the site. Use it like heroin. Get hooked, and then by the time it becomes pay, then you have to go pay for it. But still, I would go check it out. It has every tool that you need for the fantasy golf season. It's the one-stop shop. Everything that you need, except for picks. I mean, you make your own picks off the site. It's not anyone there selling you picks. So if that's something you want, don't do that. But plug FanVice. Basketball is still coming, football is still going, but your guys' PGA product is top notch. Yeah,
no, it's going to be fun. And just real quick, I do want to tell everyone, kind of following in your footsteps, beginning of 2018, FanVice for the first week of January is going to be absolutely free. So if you're looking to play some golf, come check us out, watch a week, have some fun. NBA, NFL, and everything. And yeah, stop on by.
And if people didn't know, I did the PGA show on FanVice for most of last season with you and Andrew Barron. You guys got Tim Frank to replace me. I'm not going to lie to you. Probably an upgrade.
No, definitely not. But Tim is amazing too. You guys both. One day we're gonna bring you back on, and it's gonna be roundtable style. We'll have us four. Well, that'll be the ultimate team.
Well, I remember Wiley kept pitching this thing about doing a fantasy golf sort of conference, very unofficial conference for during the Barbasol or something like that. Whatever's the opposite of the Open Championship down in Kentucky or something. I got to see it now. It's the only 20 people that would go would be the 20 golf writers. We could do a 20-person show.
Yeah, I don't know who I'll have to try to work it in there. I didn't get the invite. That hurts, but yeah,
well, I don't know if there's an invite or not. I saw it on Twitter.
Oh well, there you go. But yeah, no, I'm excited. Obviously, Tim's great, and golf is it's a really fun time of the year. It's going to be an awesome year of golf. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it too. And then like that, I'll be back tomorrow with Tim Andacust and a mystery guest with Jeff Feinberg still stuck at Disneyland, I think, without the power on, and he might be leaving for CNN. I don't even know what's going on. Then we'll have that show on New Year's Day, and then we'll be back fresh for the golf season starting next week. It's exciting times. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at ThePME on Twitter. Check out my DraftKings cheat sheet, which will not be updated before the game because I'm going to some of the games, and I'll probably be too drunk to figure anything out. Anyway, you can just subscribe to the show on YouTube under the DraftKings page, under the Pat Mayo Experience on iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, Audio Boom, and Google Play. Thanks for watching this year. Don't forget to get the episode a like. Goes a long way, all right? Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.